In the previous part, Choi learnt that the current Yokai King's reign will come to an end in 6 months' time, and when that happens, all of the hungry Yokais will leave their world and devour countless humans. Realizing what this meant, Choi decided to lock in. He asked Mangti to train him, and like any good mentor, Mangti left the task of training Choi to someone else. Seol wanted to be recognized so she could go to the human world, so Mangti decided to test her by having her train Choi. Seol viewed Choi as being inferior to her, and she thought it would be a waste of time to train him. However, Mangti thought otherwise. He expressed to Seol that he thought there is a good chance Choi could learn their ways quickly, and afterwards he disappeared, leaving Seol with no option but to train Choi. Before we get on to the video, do me a favor and hit the like button, it greatly helps out the channel. Now back to the video. Gyeogugwi's body was rendered useless by Seolwa's chain ability, and Choi watched in shock as this surreal sight unfolded in front of his eyes. His body began to tremble, but he was now realizing that simply watching in shock would not help his current situation. He accepted the fact that the current situation he is facing now had become his reality, and he must somehow accept and adapt to it. Seolwa turned her gaze to Choi, and in a calm but serious tone she questioned if Choi was paying attention. Choi, with newfound determination, gave his full attention to Seolwa, and she began to explain that what she is using is called Force, an ability that consumes one's energy. Force can be divided into 2 groups. The first is inherent magic, and the second is acquired magic. Seolwa was certain Choi would be familiar with the first already, but after seeing Choi's confused expression, she realized that wasn't the case. So she reminded him of the goblin wrestling move he used when he awakened, and she explained that that ability is an innate skill that Choi's bloodline remembers. Seolwa expressed that the reason Choi could use that skill without any special training is because of his goblin bloodline. But it's a different case when it comes to acquired skills. Any yokai can freely learn and use acquired skills, but learning and training is essential for those types of abilities. With her back turned to Gyeogugwi, Seolwa pointed behind her and she expressed that Gyeogugwi only relies on his natural physique and strength, and now he is being humiliated by a simple binding skill. She spoke in a confident tone that Gyeogugwi is the perfect example of being utterly below her, and Gyeogugwi couldn't help but sweat nervously as he awaited his fate. Then she deactivated her one tail, and she shifted the conversation. She expressed that now that things had turned out like this, she is willing to teach Choi, but she wanted to make one thing clear. Seolwa focused her fiery gaze on Choi, and in a serious tone she expressed that she dislikes troublesome things, and if the results of her efforts were meaningless then she would be very angry, so she expressed that if Choi isn't prepared, then he should give up in advance. For someone who was just a human a few minutes ago, her training will be extremely tough, and if he disappoints her, he might actually die. Choi lowered his head, his demeanor saddened, and he thought about what Seolwa just said. However, he recalled that his family would be in danger if nothing was done, and with some newfound determination, he told Seolwa that if she is willing to teach him, then he will do his best to exert every bit of effort he can to learn. He expressed that he has to learn no matter what, since right now he is not in a situation where he can worry about dying in the future. Seolwa placed her hand on her chin, and she observed Choi's demeanor, and she couldn't help but smile after seeing how determined Choi had become. And although she thinks the chances for Choi's success are low, she thought training him would be better than doing nothing, so she agreed. And she questioned if Choi should start his training with his first meal. Choi was taken by surprise, and he questioned what she meant by meal. Seolwa released some force from her hand, and she reminded him about earlier, when she mentioned that it consumes energy to use force. Seolwa stared at the force she was releasing from her hand intensely, and she expressed that everyone in the yokai realm possesses this power, but Choi probably only has a little bit of energy left. Normally just breathing air, consuming food, and drinking water in this realm naturally replenishes energy. But Choi just arrived in this realm today, and with his human diet, she guessed that he probably hasn't accumulated that much energy, so the power that he's had since birth is all he had. She placed her finger on her cheek, and with a cheeky smile she questioned if Choi is hungry. Considering how much energy Choi used, she expressed that he must be starving. Choi grabbed the back of his neck, and he told Seolwa that surprisingly he doesn't feel hungry right now, but suddenly after he finished saying that he started to feel an immense feeling of starvation. He looked at his hand questioning what was happening, and Seolwa explained that this was happening because he had very little force left in him. Choi only had a handful, which was completely drained by his last move he used on Gyeogugwi. She approached Choi, who had bent over due to the pain, and she placed her hand on his back expressing that Choi is just having a reaction because of force depletion. And she explained that the solution to his problem is really simple. She leaned in, and she started to whisper in Choi's ears. She turned Choi's attention to Gyeogugwi, and she explained that there are rules among yokais. If you win in an official duel initiated by the divine judge, then the rights of the loser's life will belong to the winner. She continued to whisper in Choi's ears, tempting his goblin blood to devour Gyeogugwi so he can replenish his force. She expressed ominously that with how big Gyogugwi is, he should serve as a good meal for Choi and completely satisfy his hunger. Seolwa's sweet whispers had worked, and it sent Choi into a frenzy-like state, and in that moment Choi approached Gyogugwi, completely operating on instinct. He felt an intense hunger as a yokai that he had never experienced before, and that desire was further fueled by the sweet whispers of Seolwa. The only thing on Choi's mind at that moment was the instinct to prey. Seolwa observed Choi with a pleasant smile on her face. However, there was something that Seolwa hadn't thought about before. She had forgotten about the greedy nature of goblins, which makes them want to capture the prey which is more nutritious and delicious. Suddenly Choi stopped approaching Gyogugwi, and he turned his gaze to Seolwa instead. And he suddenly jumped at her. Seolwa, with a slightly irritated look, lifted her hand and she used the bind spell on Choi. Choi was binded by the same chains as Gyogugwi, and in an annoyed tone Seolwa expressed that no matter how hungry Choi is, he shouldn't act so arrogantly. She scratched her head in disappointment, questioning why a mere half-yokai dares to attack her. She looked at him, questioning if she looked like easy prey to Choi's goblin blood. She sighed, saying she would have to fix his manners. Choi grabbed the chains that were binding him, and using his brute strength, he was able to break the chains. This left Seolwa stunted. She was amazed that Choi was able to break through the chains with just his brute strength, even if she only used one chain on him. After breaking Seolwa's bind ability, Choi attacked, and Seolwa was able to dodge by moving back. Seolwa grabbed her fingernail as she expressed that even if Choi is a half-goblin, a goblin is still a goblin, and she questioned if that's what Choi was trying to show. She ripped off her fingernail, and she admitted the fact that a goblin is still a goblin even if they're a half-breed. Choi quickly rushed in, and Seolwa calmly started to draw a summoning circle using the blood from her fingernail. She used the summoning skill, the great demon subduing the emperor, one fist, and a giant fist appeared that punched Choi. Choi instinctively blocked the attack, but his body started to tremble from the impact. Suddenly the fist made a palm, and it smacked Choi violently. The attack was so strong that it sent Choi flying, and Choi left a giant hole on a nearby hill. After the attack, Seolwa called out, questioning if Choi was still alive. She noticed Choi's figure standing in the dust motionless, and she expressed that it couldn't be helped even if Choi died. Choi was asking for his death when he attacked her, and she wasn't too bothered by it, since she didn't expect too much from Choi anyway. However, as the dust cleared, Seolwa noticed something that took her by surprise. Choi was standing with a horn protruding from his forehead. Seolwa had made the slight mistake of thinking that Choi, who just awakened, wouldn't be able to use skills that were mostly used by powerful goblins. In the goblin bloodline, only a few chosen ones are enlightened with the unique skill. Despite its rarity, the overwhelming power made the skill the symbol of the goblin race. This skill was called Unique Force Goblin's Club. Choi grabbed the horn that was protruding from his head. The horn took the form as a weapon, and Choi prepared to use it as such. Seolwa smiled nervously. For a half-goblin, Choi is more complicated than she anticipated. Seolwa was an extraordinary yokai. She is a genius who grew her 9 tails in less than 100 years. That's why she clearly feels the dangers of facing such a creature for the first time since her birth. Seolwa started to get nervous, considering the difference in amount of force she had compared to Choi, made her feel like she couldn't lose. However, she couldn't help but feel nervous about the pressure Choi was emitting. Choi suddenly rushed in for an attack, and he used the Goblin's Club's transformation skill, Thunder Strike. Seolwa used the Great Demon subduing the Emperor one fist, and the Great Demon Emperor's hand grabbed hold of Choi's club, giving her a second to assess that Choi was using the Goblin's Club ability. And since Choi was going all out, she decided to show off a little. Seolwa activated 2 tails, and the Great Demon Emperor slammed Choi into the ground. After that attack, Seolwa finally had a second to catch her breath. However, she questioned if this would be enough to keep Choi down. She thought about the tenacity Choi just showed, and she concluded that she would have to beat him at least 6 times to bring Choi back to his senses. Suddenly, Choi started to pull on his club. The Great Demon Emperor pulled back. This surprised Seolwa, and she quickly turned her attention to the dust cloud. And after the dust cleared, she notices Choi in a tug-of-war match against the Great Demon Emperor's hand. This left her speechless, and she questioned if Choi is really contending with the Great Demon subduing Emperor. With brute strength, Choi won the tug-of-war, and he was able to get his weapon back. The Goblin Club is a tool that can freely change its form to the user's will and purpose. That's why during the time when goblins were thriving, yokais referred to the Goblin's Club as a weapon that could become anything. Choi's club changed from again, and he attacked Seolwa with the skill Shatter Strike. Luckily, the Great Demon subduing Emperor was able to block Choi's attack, protecting Seolwa. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then hit the like button.